Dr. Jazz.
But
Dr.
man,
Jazz.
I want to jump in this subject of band leading. I have so many records of you as a band leader going way back, like, I guess more than 30 years. And
Oh
last one I
man.
heard by you was Casseus, the one that you did
Uh-huh.
last year.
Yeah.
And I want to start with this record, actually. I mean, it's for you. I guess it's old now already, but probably preparing something new. But still, like, I want to touch it. Like, why did you decide to go that way? And it's a beautiful record, but why this Haitian composer, and what was the story behind it?
Right. I mean, my philosophy as a band leader has first of all been, uh, what did I think was it meaningful to me as an artist, but also to the musical community in general. Uh, what can I bring to the scene, as it were, that would be unique or personal, and in our little tiny world have some importance or some value. It's easy to get, and I have been, when I was younger, pushed into the more commercial streams of things. And it took me years to dig myself out of that smooth jazz hole that I was put into, not really even aware at the time that that's what was happening.
Hmm.
Um, and my objective is first of all more long-term longevity. I've been working steadily
Yeah.
for at this point 35 years, and plenty of gigs as a sideman, but also plenty of gigs as a leader. And so, for example, with Casseus, I think it's important that I have classical guitar skills and jazz guitar skills and popular guitar skill and comfort in all those areas. So where do those elements cross is always an interesting place for me, because there are certain things that I can do with classical music that most classical guitarists would struggle with. There are certain things I can do in jazz music that many jazz guitarists would struggle with. And so I try to find that music that suits me, and that I can help bring to life in a way that might not be. Now, Casseus, Mark Rebo originally sent me that
Oh,
music.
really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was hilarious because he sent it to me like out of the blue. Just like he didn't say, "Hi, this is Mark. I'm going to send you a package or an email or a phone call," or it's just like in my mailbox there was a manila envelope,
Like sheet music and
sheet music,
oh,
handwritten
wow.
sheet
Oh,
music,
man, that's amazing.
Xerox copies, and I was looking through, I was like, what's this, and Mark had sent it over, and of course I knew who Mark was, and so I called him up, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I thought you could play this. You should play this." I was like, "Okay," and for the same reason, I think, the classical chops plus an understanding of groove and world music. And so I began to play through the music, and I just, I did really like it a lot. It's very beautiful music.
Hmm.
It's subtly difficult. It's technically somewhat simple, but melodies are long, right? Whereas when you have most folklorical music, melodies tend to be short.
Yeah.
These melodies are more influenced by French melodic traditions through the Haitian diaspora, and of course, African rhythms. And so some of these melodies just keep going and going, and there's a lot of very specific harmonic changes that are very simple. It's not like it's just kind of random, but you have to change to the 4 chord here, and you have to change to the 6 chord there, and there's a 5 chord. Very subtle, but very effective. And I think the first memory I have of playing this and realizing how powerful it was, I'm sitting here playing one of those pieces, and my little boys at the time were maybe 4 and 5. I'm playing the Dance of the Humans, the voodoo pieces, which is dot dot dee 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 dee
Yeah,
dee dee da 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 da. It's very hypnotic.
hypnotic, yeah.
And my boys come in and they just started dancing around to this music. And they're like, not that kind of boy, kid. They're like, I mean, they love music and both are into music. My younger boys. One's a drummer, one's a clarinetist now, and a tenor player. But the fact that they were just like hypnotized by this rhythm was interesting because it's simple and yet there's something there that's kind of mysterious. So we started playing with the band some of these pieces. The tip-off was that Casseus had arranged a lot of his music many different ways. And he played guitar in Harry Belafonte's band.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was familiar with the rhythm section. He was familiar with arrangement and transcription, transposing his pieces. So I don't think he would have been like this sacrilege, And it just was such a natural connection for it. We just started playing him live and people would dig it. And so it just kind of took off from there.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good example of a project that I think was a unique fit for me. And I think Mark saw that. Took me 15 years to get to it, but I got to it eventually.
So he sent you that like really a long time ago.
Yes, quite a while ago.
Okay.
But at the time I was touring with Joe.
Yeah.
And then I was touring with on and off with Paquito, and then Garage Mahal removed 10 years of my life,
Sure.
20 or 30 years off of my body.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. Otherwise, have you been preparing something new in the band leading? I mean, will you release something new in the upcoming months or?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of projects in the works. So I was working with Pat Martino before he passed.
Really? Oh wow, I didn't know.
And Pat is, sort of informally a mentor of mine. Just because I studied him in such depth and have modeled so much of my aesthetics.
Yeah, you can hear
after
online,
his
yeah.
after yeah, for sure. I'd like to think of myself as somewhere in between where McLaughlin, Matheny, and Martino meet, the 3 M's. And so Pat and I had been, talking on the phone, and I had transcribed most of Joyous Lake.
Oh, okay.
And what I noticed is that Pat himself rarely played, if ever, played that music since his aneurysm in the early 80s.
80s, yeah.
And even when he did that Stone Blue record, I think they played just the track Joyous Lake. And that was a pretty sketchy record, frankly.
Yeah.
And it's clearly they got Pat together and they said, we're going to get on all set rhythm section and we're going to throw you in the studio for 3 days and we're going to put this out. And Joyous Lake is clearly a band.
Yeah, definitely.
Delmar and Ken Wood and so Pat and I were talking about it, and his memory would come and go, but there were definitely moments where I would be like, "Hey, I'm working on this section," and he'd be like, "Oh no, that's in 7 or that's in 6/8, and that's those chords I think are like this," and mostly over the phone. And then a couple of questions I had for Ken Wood, and then he got involved a little bit.
Oh, really? Oh.
And so we went in the studio to record all this with slightly different arrangements. With we have a Mongolian throat singer, we have an Indian singer on some of the tunes. But then Pat passed away in the middle of the project. And so we performed it a few times, and then we did it live at his memorial in New Jersey, which was very beautiful. Kenwood came and played with us. It was really cool. But I didn't feel good about releasing it, sort of right on the heels of his passing. And so I think enough time has passed now that we're going to probably remaster it and put it out on vinyl and then do a formal release on it. Garage Mahal has a new album that's almost ready.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're in the studio end of November. We're going to finish it up. Cautious Clay is one of our guests, the singer-songwriter, rapper. The new band is myself and Kai, plus Oz Ezeldin on keyboards, Egyptian keyboard player. It's just tremendous. And you may not have heard of him. Hassan Hurd is a drummer out of Oakland. He plays with Fishbone.
Okay.
Plays with who's that? South Asian rapper. Rhyme Fest. Anyway,
I'll check him out.
Plays with a lot of those cats, but he's like serious Oakland shit, just like down home Oakland funk. He's a scholar about that stuff. He really is, and he's schooled all of us in the band about some of that shit. So the record is really cool. It's gonna be really funky, and so that's coming out. Tony Monaco and I have another trio album that we did that we're finishing up finally. And last but not least right now is the Chicago Immigrant Orchestra is a group I'm co-leading. And that's a 14-piece world music group.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
And it's just a fantastic band and a very nice album. We have a Nigerian singer, a Persian singer, Mongolian singer, South Asian, Hindustani singer.
Beautiful.
Ruwan, oud, cajon, tabla, African percussion, horse head fiddle, vina. On some tunes we have what's this called? A traditional Guatemalan marimba, Mexican marimba. And so it's a very diverse sound, but our approach to the world music idea has been to really write music and arrange music that is orchestrated for this instrumentation.
Specific, yeah.
Right. I think a lot of world music groups tend to create a bit of a smorgasbord, right? Where there's a little flamenco, and there's a little African, then there's a little of this, and there's a little of that. And it's all very cool, but it's more of a sampler. When you go into the Korean restaurant, you get like 50 different little plates with sauces and kimchis and all this, but nothing ever mixes together, right?
Yep.
So we're literally arranging these pieces for the whole band, where we'd have a Mongolian tune with a Hindustani beat, or an Arabic tune with a Peruvian beat,
interesting,
sung by a Nigerian singer in African language, and so these really elements come together in a way that's fun, and everybody is. I mean, I like to say it's a little more of a jam band, in that it gets hot and heavy, when we're performing, and that's been really cool. That's been really cool. So
4 completely different facets,
right,
of you will come out.
Yeah, idea.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I think in this cycle, right after the pandemic, I retired from the university, and I also stopped doing any sideman gigs.
Okay.
Because it was taking up a lot of time, and there was a certain point where I looked at my schedule and I was like, if I do these 10 gigs as a leader, I'm going to make more money than if I do these 30 gigs as a sideman. And the sideman thing, you can get seduced by the the prestige of it a little bit,
And the ease, maybe. Yeah, you don't have to.
and the ease.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really amount to as much of meaningful personal expression.
Mm.
And so yeah, I'm at that point now where I feel like I've earned my stripes and I can kind of just proceed on my own. And it's been going good. It's been going good.
Fantastic.
The record world has changed a lot. And so being more self-empowered has been, I think, healthy for me. I was surprised that I had a very small sort of dipping my toe into the pool of radio promotions. So I hired someone just to do it just a little bit. And I got paid.
Mm.
Money came back. I got, 5-10 grand in checks while that record was spinning. And I really didn't do it very I was pretty cautious financially. I was like, I'm going to spend a couple of grand, see what happens, and I got a return on it, which was significant.
Yeah.
And so I'm more encouraged to sort of embrace the idea of having my own little, not label per se, but my own little team.
Yeah.
That we can promote those projects that are meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah, more and more artists do that as well. I mean, it's, except if we talk about, I don't know, Pat Metheny and, the giants, like, I'll put it like that. But
Right.
more and more artists, like, are just, I mean, even like people like Dave Holland, they have their own labels, and
Dave does,
Dave
Kurt
Douglas,
Rosenwinkel.
Rosenwinkel, everyone. Yeah, I mean,
Right. And I think that the reality of superstardom in jazz may be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I think there is superstardom in instrumental music. And yet that seems to be more, even bands like, post Grateful Dead bands like Fish, they have their own machine.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think that's more meaningful. So Garage Mahal is doing that now. And we just packed 2 nights in Denver. We're playing the Denver Jazz Fest. And we're kind of okay with doing it ourselves. There are some labels interested, but they have to come up with a pretty good convincing case at this point.
Yeah.
Why would I give you 90% of my money unless you're going to do 90% of the work, motherfucker?
No, I agree, man. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How are things over there in Maribor?
Oh, man, you remember the gig you played here with Paquito?
I remember Maribor more than I remember the gig.
I wasn't that gig. We actually played on a jam session here together.
Oh, cool.
Like in
Cool.
mid-90s, that was, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, things are, luckily Maribor is like, I'm 2 hours away from Vienna. So when I do touring, I do mostly Germany and Austria and
Oh, nice.
Italy. So everything is fairly close. Munich is like 5 hours. So it's,
Yeah.
it's cool. Location-wise, it's great. But like scene-wise in Maribor or in Slovenia, it sucks, It's like 2 venues.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
And that's it. And you play one venue that pays well once a year. That's the gig you played, and then again next year.
Right.
So
I understand.
you have to play abroad. I mean, just that's where the money is. I mean, money, kind of.
Right. I moved from Chicago area just a little further northwest to I'm about maybe 40 minutes from Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Maybe 2 hours from Chicago. And it's a much smaller city. Very nice scene, very nice clubs, very nice audience. But you can't play more than 3 or 4 times a year in this place.
Sure.
And I have a pretty decent draw in this part of the world. But man, yeah, maybe once every 3 months, 2 months in any of these venues. And Chicago, I could play every weekend,
Interesting.
And so, yeah, I know what you mean about smaller markets. It is a big change, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, especially after COVID, things changed a lot for, I used to play Germany so much every year, like 2 tours, and after COVID, many initiatives closed, and they're making, let's say, only German artists or not international acts or US acts or whatever, and so,
Right.
the money went down, clubs closed, so
Yeah,
it,
no, I hear you.
you
A lot
know,
of things changed. You know,
yeah,
I retired from NIU. Um, I had been touring and teaching for almost 30 years, and so that was exhausting.
that's a lot, yeah.
And I retired because I was with Cobham with his band. I had
Yeah,
been
I
with his
saw
band for
that,
three
yeah.
years.
That
Yeah,
sounded
it
killing,
was.
man. I saw some
uh,
footage today, like,
Oh yeah,
man.
it's super fun. The record, we made a record. It's a great record. But Bill doesn't really. He just sells it on the gigs. That's all he does. He doesn't do any
Interesting.
promotion.
Yeah, because I checked if I couldn't find it. I just saw on YouTube some footage, and the band sounded killing, and
I mean, I love Bill. He's great to work for, and he's very honorable. He's a good man. He's very old school, and he doesn't really trust. So, like, I wanted to sell some records. You know, I'm on the record. I'm featured on every song. I wanted to. I'm excited. I'm proud of being in the band. Just like, hey, man, you know, can I get some records to sell in the States? And of course, I'll give you the money. Just to give them away or whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's $20 a piece. And I was like, is it $20 a piece? I mean, that's his manager talking, and I was like, all right, well, I will sell them all, so here's $20. So I bought them and then I sold them
oh
for
wow,
30,
okay,
like one box of CDs. But that's, what's 30 CDs times 20? What's that, like $600,
yeah, yeah,
So, we played 15 gigs and I worked for 13 and then you know,
Hmm,
so,
interesting.
I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
How
But
did you
that
end up on
record,
that gig, by the way, on in Billy's band? I mean,
Billy just was hunting around on YouTube and
really
he saw me.
interesting.
Oh, Christian Galvez, I think, also put in a good word,
Hmm.
bassist.
Yeah,
Um, and it was great working with him, but I was working so much. We had a tour in China, we had a tour in South America. And so, you know, 2020 March, February, I told him I can't teach anymore, retiring. I was part-time, but I had just because I was full-time and then 2018, I went down to part-time just to finish up. I had maybe 5, 10 students to get their degrees and then
yeah.
they'd be done. And uh, shit, man, I said I can't teach part time anymore. I got to be done. I got just touring with Bill. I can't teach. I can't teach. March 1st, everything canceled, and I had a whole year of no gigs. I mean, I did a lot. I got a lot done. I got all these records recorded, and you know, but man, that was that's when I started to went. Maybe this is a sign that I should just not be a sideman and just do my own
Mm,
thing.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's good. Things are turning points for a reason, and yeah,
I feel like that is the case.
yeah. That for you, you mentioned Joe before, and what's the story with Joe? I mean, playing with him, and you mentioned the beers in Austria. I can imagine, in the Slivovitz probably a lot. So, but what was the
Oh
story with
yeah.
Joe ending in that band and like playing with him? And
So, it's interesting because it was a very exciting time for me, in a lot of ways. I was on Blue Note Records at the
yeah,
time. And Blue Note, even back in the 90s, was still kind of a family. And so I was working on almost all of Bob Belden's projects. Um, Myself and John Hart, I think,
hmm,
played a lot of them. And just had a great time. And then, Bruce Lundvall, just record whatever you want, man. Record whatever you want. And then as soon as I had done my Opaque record, um,
yeah, it's a beautiful one. Yeah,
they said, "Hey, Joe Zawinul is looking for a guitar player. We're going to send you off with Joe."
Oh,
Bob
wow.
Belden, and of course I was into it, you know. But I was like, well, shouldn't I be supporting my record? You know, it's like, you know, go play with Joe. You can always support your record. And so, you know, Joe, of course, was working a ton. And I was, you know, in that band, the guitar is primarily a rhythm instrument, which I
Yep.
love. I mean, I just could sit there in the pocket. That's what a lot of people may not realize about sort of who I am and what I do, because I've always been a pocket guitar player
Mm.
as much as I can be, and I've had a real pleasure in that. When I got my first scholarships, it was mostly because I could play old school Freddie Green style, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
and people were just like shocked, the professors and other musicians, that this guy from India could go chunk, 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 play old, you know. Everybody asks about my heritage, but what they don't realize is that I'm just from Chicago. That's my thing, you know. And I just got that. I don't even know how. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I play with a lot of folks. I play with a lot of Brazilians who are like, man, you sound just like an authentic Brazilian. And then I'll play with funk guys. I'll be like, man, this shit is on, you know. And you know, there's always a little bit of an accent, you know, but that's a good thing if you embrace it. So with Joe, I was playing African style guitar, and I remember the profound moment where he was saying to me, you know, here's your part, Fareed. Here's your part. Don't ever change it, but don't ever play it the same way twice,
Mm.
which is kind of a contradiction in a way, right? And it became this thing where I would, you know, hold my line, but I could dance with that line. I could have fun with it, but I had to keep that spot in the rhythm. And in his music, particularly, I was more of the bass player
Mm.
than the
Interesting.
bass.
Yep.
You know, my line was in the middle of the music, and it was sort of the pivot of all the different architectures that he was building. Um, what was interesting about that band was Arto Tunçbayasyan was in the band.
Yeah, that's killing
He
you.
has a very strong personality, and Paquito has a very strong personality. I had my acoustic instruments, and I would bring those in, my sitar guitars and things like that. And Joe loved that. Um, this band was more of a challenge to him, I think,
Mm.
uh, than other bands, and that I think has a positive side to it. But it was difficult for Joe, because he would get very sensitive,
Mm.
and if the spotlight was off of him, you could tell that he would get a little dark, and that was where it got weird. It got weird, you know. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of Schlivovitz,
Yeah.
and I mean, every morning it was like,
Oh shit, man. Yeah, I've heard stories.
yeah, it was no joke. And you know, by the time I got done with that band, I had a glass of water on stage, but it wasn't filled with water,
Oh man.
you know. And you just needed to, because,
Oh
like, I
man.
remember every night, you know, he would yell at somebody. And one night it was my turn. He just reamed me in front of everybody, just reamed me a new asshole, you know. And you know, you start feeling smaller and smaller and smaller, and all of a sudden you're just like, okay, 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 you know. Next night, I forget who it was. It might have been Arto, because Arto was always like, Arto was kind of a little more street smart than I am at that time, certainly. And he would just be like, so he puts the same tape in from the night before, and Joe's listening, and Joe says, "Funny, why don't you play like that every night? It is the same tape, right? From the night when he's reaming me
Yeah.
out 2 nights ago. He puts in the same tape the second night, and because they recorded all the shows, you know." And it kind of was like, Yeah, okay. That is what that is. And you just have to, just do what you do and do what you feel. But man, I learned a lot from Joe. Joe was a fantastic teacher and a mentor, and he really made you stand up for what you believed in, which was great.
Yep.
We played in Brazil, in Rio, and at the time, I would always practice classical music in the green room. As much, part of it because I love doing it, but part of it because I had concerts, and I had a concert to play the Villa-Lobos Concerto with the orchestra here in the States. And so I'm in the green room and I'm just, you travel all day, you play the gig, you have a glass of vodka. There's not a lot left after the gig, right? So when am I going to practice? After sound check, before dinner. Take an hour, go over the concerto. Joe, man, you always playing that shit, man. That classical music's going to fuck you up, Of course, he went to the Moscow Conservatory. He knew all about classical music, or Vienna Conservatory. I don't know, one of those. And so we go out on stage, and he says, Fareed, I always have my classical guitar and my electric. Get your classical. He says, what's that shit you're always playing? Let's play that in front of the audience, right there,
oh,
on stage, right? And you mean the Villa-Lobos Concerto? Yeah, the Villa-Lobos. We play Villa-Lobos here in its home, I said, okay, because I know it, I know it like the back of my hand. So I literally played the beautiful slow movement to the Villa-Lobos Guitar Concerto, and Joe just
kind of
chords, just fucking killing it, And then at the end, Joe was like, and that was like the beautiful, most beautiful, validation that anybody could ever want for.
Yeah, especially by Joe. Yeah.
Oh man, especially with Joe. So.
Oh man, amazing! Wow. But that group never recorded an album, right?
Never did.
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah.
I do have some very nice recordings live from Frankfurt Radio.
Oh wow.
On DAT that I've had transferred.
Oh wow.
And they are excellent. I mean, they're studio quality, and they sound fantastic. Maybe they'll get released someday.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Arto. I mean, forget about me, man. I did my thing, and it was different because I had the acoustics, and that wasn't like anybody else in that band.
Yep.
But Arto, man,
I know. Yeah,
he just brings something else to the table, and then and Paco. Yeah. And I'm not trying to I mean, the whole band was super killing. I just think we were all very strong personalities, and that his later bands seems like, for the most part, probably intelligent, at least, just were more supportive.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So anyway.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned the Blue Note. I wanted to ask you about the Blue Note period. I remember buying Deja Vu and Opak in Slovenia, actually still here, because those records actually made it here, right? Blue Note had distribution everywhere. And how was it for you when you landed that gig with Blue Note and having those albums? I mean, I know you did those 2 records on Sting's label before, right?
Right.
Like, how did this transition happen to Blue Note, or?
It was complicated. Like, part of the issue for me was that I was quite young when I got with Sting's label. And so from being just like a student who was a guitar player, Sting, and I was playing with Paquito, right? That's how I got the thing with Sting.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I was young when I started with Paquito. I was, 20, 21.
Wow. How did he discover you, by the way? I mean,
I was playing with a local Chicago band called Chevrolet.
Oh, that's with Howard, right? Levy.
with Howard,
Oh,
right?
greetings to Howard, by the way, if you're.
Yes, yes,
He's,
I will pass that along.
we toured and recorded together quite some
Uh,
with Howard. Like,
I love Howard.
oh man,
Howard,
beautiful guy. Yeah. Oh really? Oh
yeah.
okay. You played in that one. I didn't know.
And so I wasn't the regular guitar player. Ernie Denoff was a regular
Yeah.
guitar player, but he had moved to LA for a year or two, maybe. And so in the meantime, I played. And then when he came back to Chicago, I didn't even question it. I think we both did some gigs together, but I was like, Ernie, it's your gig. Have your gig, man. You know, I had a lot of gigs anyway. And when Claudio couldn't make one of the shows, Howard recommended me.
Okay.
And so I played the gig and had a lot of fun. And every 2 months or so after that, I would get a card from Paquito. And it'd be like, I met your girlfriend. It'd be a picture of some old woman or something, one tooth, you know, just funny shit, you know. And that's how I think he was basically trying to find out if I was going to be able to roll with it. Paquito shit was loose. It's still pretty loose, but it was super loose back then. And so the first gig, and he was managed at the time by Helen Keane, who managed Bill Evans, the pianist,
Okay.
of course, many folks. And Helen was old, tough New York. Borscht soup in the morning.
Oh my God. Oh Jesus.
Fareed, come over, have some borscht. We'll talk about music. You got a career ahead of you. I know it. I know it. So, borscht. And so Paquito finally calls me for a gig. He says, hey, man, fly to Miami. We're going to send you a plane ticket. This is, you know, before the internet, really. Plane ticket, and I fly to Miami to go to this club, and we're going to have a gig, you know. And Paquito was all over the place at the time in a lot of different ways, right? I think you know what I mean. And so I get there on time, but there's nobody at the airport to meet me. And I try to call on a payphone, Helen Keane, no. Try to call Paquito, nothing. Like, I remember Paquito said that the hotel was around the airport. So I got in a cab and I said, let's just go around the airport and try all the hotels till we find the one that has my name. We found it, second try or something. It's cool. I got the hotel. I just better go to the gig, and I'm just going to get there. So I get to the gig, and it's this big restaurant, and it was closed, but they were just opening when I got there. The gig was at nighttime. I don't know. And I was there at like, 4 o'clock, let's say. And I look, and there's a PA system, like an old Shure Vocal Master PA, one of these absolute shit PAs, and nothing else. And I'm like, are you guys going to get some amps and things for us? And he's like, yeah, that's an amplifier right there, you know. Ahí está el amplificador, in Spanish. I speak Spanish, and luckily. And he's like, ahí está toda la cosa, ¿qué quiere? It's like, oh, shit, that's not going to work we need a guitar amp, and we need a bass amp, and we need a keyboard amp, and we need a keyboard. And there was nothing going on. No one had contacted anybody. And I was like, all right, let's go to the music store and let's rent some gear. So we go to the music store, we rent the gear. Everything's cool. Get the gear there. Gig's supposed to start at 9. But it's Miami, and it's that side of Miami, right? And so people start showing up around 9. And I'm waiting. 9:30, 10. And Paquito, and I'm not sure who he was with maybe Mickey Orta, Danny and Mickey Orta, the piano player.
Yeah.
They got there right around 10, maybe. And I was like, oh, look, there's gear here. And I was like, yeah, there's gear here. And I didn't know shit. I didn't know any music. And Paquito shows up probably about 11 with, I don't know if it was Claudio or it was somebody. Might have been Claudio. And let's just say he was really hopped up and enthusiastic. very excited and full of energy, if you get what I'm saying. And we played till 2. I mean, it was Cuba basically, right? In Miami. But so I didn't know what the fuck I walked into. Just like the Chicago kid with his guitar, and but I think he was impressed by the fact that I was like, yeah, it all worked out. We're good. Everybody's fine, And so then I continued for a long time with Paquito.
Mm.
We just played a duo concert maybe 3 or 4 months ago here in
Really?
Chicago.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
beautiful, man.
it
Wow.
was really fun, really fun.
So you're still in touch?
Oh yeah,
Beautiful.
he's family.
Wow.
And so one of the exciting things is Blue Note just reissued those albums just this last week or two ago.
That Celebration, Manhattan Burn, and that stuff, and
No, they re-released my albums.
your albums. Ah, okay.
Yeah. Fuck,
Oh
Paquito,
yeah.
they released my albums.
No, Deja Vu and Opak and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
I was
Oh.
shocked. Because here's the thing, like I was saying, I'm not doing the leader stuff anymore, and I'm doing my own shit, and I'm going to do my thing, and it's going to be great. And and then I started working on all that music again, and that music particularly is very difficult.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
It's long compositions. They're through composed. It's difficult for me, but I mean, it's much harder for side persons to know that music because it's long through composed forms. And what you may not know is there was a second record that was scheduled to be recorded that never got done with myself, Ralph Towner, and Egberto Gismonti.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It would have been an amazing record.
Christ. Yeah.
And I wrote a bunch of music for that never got played. And during the pandemic, I had all my archives organized, and I found all this music. And I was like, wow. So that was sort of page 2 of the Opaque universe.
Oh man, that's a shame.
And yeah, that's another story. But anywho, so I was just getting ready so there's a new, it's not really that new, but the Schertler pickups for classical guitar are absolutely out of this world. And I say that not lightly because I hate amplified classical guitar.
Yeah, it's terrible.
With a passion, So, Goran and I have this duo, and we've been touring quite a bit. That's another new album that we're going to record in November.
Oh, fantastic.
And I actually was playing my classical guitar with a Schertler pickup, which is nothing. It just sticks on the bridge. Just stick it down with putty. It's got a preamp in there that I don't know if there's like some kind of voodoo in that shit, man, because you plug it into anything and it sounds like
Natural.
your guitar.
Yeah.
Natural, very natural. I mean, and I say this most of the time, and I don't know if you appreciate the same thing, but for me, there's playing the guitar and enjoying the sound and responding to the sound in real time.
Yeah.
And then there's professional situations where it's like playing your instrument, hating the sound, and just pretending that something else is there. To make a professional adjustment, you say, I'm going to pretend that I can hear the bass player.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play in time, and I'm going to pretend that it sounds like it's supposed to sound. Because I don't know what's happening out there in the audience. It's just going to be a mind or a matter. And it works up to a point, right? You don't have an organic experience, but you can have a professional experience. It works. But I'm sitting there with this pickup. I have played these Hendrickson amps. They're tiny, 9 pounds. I toured all over Europe with Billy with that Hendrickson amp.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
They laughed their asses off at me when I brought that amp up, but man, it
worked. Yeah,
worked great, And so I have that, my electric, and my classical plugged in, and I'm playing the classical with this Schertler. It's the first time in my life that I was actually enjoying myself. I was enjoying the sound. I could take my flauta and it sounded like my flauta. I could take my a Ramirez and it sounded like a Ramirez. I mean, I've been, and so the upshot of this technology is that I said I want to tour that music.
Mm.
Because in the past I would play that music with nylon string, and I really hated the sound.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
People would tell me, "Oh, it's fine." I'd be like, "No, it's not fine." If the sound isn't beautiful, I don't know.
It's terrible otherwise. Yeah, sure.
Could you imagine McCoy playing on a Nord?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for instance, yeah. That's
For
a good
instance,
one,
I mean,
actually.
like, I could totally see McCoy being like,
Yeah,
"What the fuck is this? This isn't
that's a good one.
what is that?" And if you can't do a rasgueado on a Spanish guitar amplified, and it doesn't,
Yep.
what are we talking about here? Just
Yep.
put it away. I would put a microphone on it, play a soft ballad, and that was it. But this is, man, I've done, increasingly more and more trio gigs. I played last night. We played one of my tunes from Opaque with the full band, no feedback,
Yeah,
like
especially with
zero
drums. Yeah, yeah,
feedback.
yeah.
Drums, percussion, bass, and harmonium with Hindustani vocalist, and no issues, dude. And so
Mm.
I'm really, gonna go back towards playing more amplified, playing that music live again.
Yeah,
And then coincidentally, I get an email, "Oh, we're reissuing your albums."
fantastic. Yeah, you
So
should do like a tour or something, Europe,
that's
promote
the
those
plan.
albums
Well,
again, or at least one of them. Yeah.
find me an agent.
Yeah, that's a different story, right? Getting to Europe, I mean,
It
and
is. It is.
band leading
It's
and yeah,
um because I tour a lot in the States.
yeah,
But it seems like Europe is a different set of agents,
yeah,
and Billy I know has 2 or 3 different agents.
sure.
So now that my plan is to finish these albums up in November, and then really really hit it a little harder on the touring front, because I don't know if I want to tour that much, but long weekends is good.
Yeah, if
know?
we get a week tour together in Europe, or that's amazing already, right? I mean,
That's enough.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
enough.
that's enough. I know what you mean.
Like I do a week on the West Coast. I do a week in Denver, maybe 2. There's a lot of work around Denver area.
Yeah,
I'm constantly working out here, and I do, long weekends on the East Coast, and it's enough.
yeah, yeah.
If I can just go to Europe and play a handful of hits, that would be enough.
I
I
hear
did a
you.
bunch of gigs in China, and it was weird because we got paid really well,
It's a different
we got
aesthetic. Yeah,
treated really well, but I really felt like we were just the help, you know,
yeah,
and it's odd. Japan can be like that
yeah.
as well, you know.
I know what you
But
mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, cool. Uh, well, I think I'll let you go to your daughter, I guess, or
yeah, I think she's seen a lot of TV.
yeah.
But
But next time if you come to Europe, we have a guest room here. You're kind of invited. Come over. We can play, jam, drink some nice beer or wine, and chat more. So,
not
let me.
unless you find me a good bottle of a good shot of Slivovitz.
Oh man, you're in the region. We live in Steiermark, so this is where Zawinul was from, actually. So so.
Joe would always have this like this commercial Slivovitz.
But yeah, that's like the real shit is,
So
go to a
right,
yeah.
we're in Poland, and there's a bunch of construction workers. And me being who I am, they're all at the bar, and I'm at the restaurant with the band and the promoter. And I said to the waitress, I said, I want to drink what they're drinking. And she's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So they brought me, and you should have seen the whole line ahead just turned to watch me. And I was like, with a shot of their Slivovitz. And I think
Yeah, yeah.
I turned whiter than George Bush, right there. Boom. Just like
That's
some good shit.
that's brutal stuff. Yeah.
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 All right, brother.
Cool, man.
I appreciate this, man.
You too.
Dr. Jazz.